Hi, everyone. This is Autumn Payne. I'm a visual journalist, and I'm here interviewing Stephen Walker again. He's a Buddhist teacher as well as a therapist at Middle Way Health, and he brings a wonderful perspective that combines both Eastern and Western psychology and philosophy. So, we're here to talk about issues and topics of mental health, and we hope it'll be beneficial for people that are watching. So, thank you for joining again.
Thanks for having me on, Autumn. I'm ready.
Yeah. Yes, he's ready. So today I wanted to talk about a topic that is talked a lot about over the holidays, actually. And it's the topic of gratitude. And this is actually a two-part question. So I did want to talk about the usual thing, which is why is gratitude important for your mental health and how can we
Mhm.
cultivate it. But I also want to talk a little bit about the weaponizing of gratitude and sort of the, you should be grateful idea when people are having a
Mm.
hard time, that they may feel this pressure from the gratitude police. So I know that's kind of a two-part thing. So however you want to approach that, this side or that side, I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Uh, Gratitude that's connected with obligation and repayment, is a form of transactional gratitude. I can't say that it's not useful. I mean, if someone gives us a gift, just showing gratefulness, thank you so much for your gift, is like good social skills and acknowledgement and so forth. But maybe you're talking about the kind of gratitude, the second part, where we should say, well, you should be grateful that your power didn't go off in the storm, or we should be grateful that we're not in Ukraine or something, so stop complaining. So the operational point is stop complaining. I'm not interested in your complaints anymore, and that you're just using, yes, gratefulness as a weapon.
Yeah, it does seem to happen that way, and often I hear it uh, with people who are depressed sometimes, right? Well, you have so much to be grateful for. Um, you shouldn't be depressed, or maybe if you cultivated more gratitude, then you would not be depressed, that sort of thing. Um,
That could be true, but usually sentences that involve should um, carry with it a certain amount of obligation or compulsion because they have a kind of a legal sense to them, and it's applying pressure, right? So you
mhm.
should be, um, it doesn't always open up our hearts right away.
Right, that is true. Yeah. So another thing that has come up is in discussions with parents, we talk about, well, how do we cultivate gratitude in our children? Um, I've heard
Probably
answers to
modeling
the,
it
oh, yeah, that one.
for starters.
Hmm.
Just expressing gratitude that they learned how to tie their shoes or learned how to put their food in their mouth or something,
Hmm.
or just gratitude that they're on the planet. I mean, just unconditional gratitude is, I'm so grateful you're in my life, things like that. So I think we have to model it and teach it first before expecting
Hmm.
kids like, you should be grateful there's a roof over your head. And
Yeah,
I'm so
or a lot
need.
of times it's in relation to someone else. Sometimes we express gratitude. They say, "Well, I take my children to feed the homeless to cultivate gratitude in my children," for example. But for me, I'm not so sure that gratitude comes from the act of comparing necessarily, but maybe more of a felt sense of well-being or connectedness, perhaps. What do you think?
um, I like unconditional gratitude just like you do, although I'm less harsh about conventional gratitude, which is different
Okay.
than shoulding gratitude. Just, sometimes people say in recovery, like do the gratitudes. So
Mhm.
it's a little bit pro forma, a little bit rehearsed, but sometimes we do have to go through a checklist and remind ourselves of our resources. So it's not the heartfelt kind of gratitude, but um, and maybe there ought to be another word for it, but it's taking a positive inventory is maybe what people are pointing at. So please balance off your problems with your positive inventory. Um, and sometimes that does open up the heartfelt experience of being grateful, but usually it's still going to be conceptual and transactional, but it has a value.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
there. So I'm not talking about that you should be's gratitude, but just sometimes it can be helpful to people to say, well, let's go through, what structure, or let's inventory what you have accomplished so far in your life and what resources are available to you, and see if you're taking advantage of them. But I don't ask people to be grateful, but
Mm.
maybe appreciate a little bit, and like, sometimes
Say,
we can
hey,
kid
yeah.
ourselves. We can say, well, it's a first world problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
About a lot of stuff.
Yeah. People say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, uh, so it's not really gratitude as much as uh, acknowledgement, but
Hmm.
some relative gratitudes can lead us to unconditional gratitude, I think.
Mm. I like that we have different definitions of gratitude going on here. It's not just one thing.
Yeah, I, I don't, I don't always want to go to the unconditional stuff. So we like unconditional love, but
Mhm.
um, I mean, lots of conditional love's okay too,
Hmm.
isn't it?
Well, what's conditional love? This was not part of the topic, but
Well, I mean, love and gratitude could, there can go closely. Well, conditional can say, I love that you're um, willing to, drive me to the airport. I love that about you. I love that you're willing to do, that, take
yeah,
time,
yeah.
you know.
Okay. Yeah.
But that person might stop doing that.
Mhm. That's
Might go,
true.
no, I say, I'm really not available to drive you to the airport anymore. And so we couldn't say, I love that you drive me to the airport.
Right. Yeah.
Or
So can,
we could stop thinking that that's important. We can go, well, of course, you should be driving me to the airport. So, but there's love there, this caring, this, or we love a
mhm,
quality about someone, but maybe the quality changes.
mhm,
So, of course, a lot of people unfortunately get divorced, and I like to remind people that that doesn't mean the love before that was false, right?
mhm.
It
Yep.
could have been conditional because it fell apart, but that doesn't mean it wasn't, very, very strong. I mean, a meal is conditional, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
6 hours later, we're a little bit hungry,
Mhm.
right? So maybe
So
conditional, a good meal, we want some more of it, and it may change. Unconditional love, I think, is very, very difficult, actually.
yeah, definitely. I think so. Yeah.
But I think
Yeah. I think about
unconditional
that.
love
Yeah.
can stimulate, gratitude, unconditional gratitude. So
Mhm.
something opens,
Unconditional.
yeah. So there's something unconditional, an unconditional love can open our hearts and to love again, but also there's a gratitude that comes along with that opening to someone else's unconditional love.
That's true. Yeah.
We just feel like saying thank you. There's some song 20 years ago, somebody singing thank you, those thank you songs. So
Yeah, and then I think about that, "Count your blessings, name them one by one." Is that a Mormon song? That might be the Mormon song, that
it might
"Count your
just be
blessings."
regular song.
I think it was a church song. I'm not sure, but yeah. So there, there's the inventory approach. That's interesting, but different from the heartfelt. So, how important is gratitude to mental well-being? Would you say?
Well, I think it's huge. Generally, people do seem to be happier with that kind of gratitude, expression of love and openness, and saying yes to life.
Mhm.
Um, uh, I'm going to quote kind of a spiritual religious source, but maybe that's okay for our readers. Um, I believe he's still alive, Brother David Steindl-Rast, who's a Benedictine monk, and years ago wrote a book, Gratefulness, the Heart of Prayer. And I did a
Mm.
workshop with him when I was really young, meaning like 50 years ago. And, he described a situation where he was in Austria at the time and the Allies were bombing, and he and his family had to be underground in a shelter for a long time. I'm paraphrasing it, not saying as elegantly as he says in the book, but when he came out of the shelter, emerged, he saw like this green grass that was so vivid and alive that he felt just grateful to be alive.
Mm.
But, so it was interesting because he's so poetic that it wasn't just like, I'm grateful I'm not getting bombed,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
I'm grateful. It's more like the, it's a response to a specific situation. So he's tying it into just the green grass pushing out through the rubbish or the rubble.
Mm.
So Brother David's probably in his middle or late 90s now. Amazing. And he did a documentary with Mathieu Ricard, who's a well-known um, uh, Buddhist monk in the Vajrayana or Tibetan tradition. He's French, and it's been labeled by the press as the happiest man alive because he
Oh,
did a lot of stuff
wow.
on happiness. Um, so he probably has something to say about gratitude, but he did a um, documentary with Brother David.
Nice. Yeah, that's quite an
Yeah.
interesting image, though, the green grass
Yeah,
through the
it's
rubble.
very, yeah. So gratitude has this context, and so it isn't just idealistic. It was a fully heartfelt, embodied sense of yes and thank you.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. Well, I
Yeah.
think that's a good place to end. That fully
Okay.
embodied yes and thank you. Yes.
All
Well,
right.
thanks for joining us
Okay.
again, and
Yeah.
we'll
See
see
you next
you
time.
next time. Bye.
Okay. Ciao.